Hey, so getting set up here. This is a pretty last minute or time sensitive trip here. It's I don't know what time it is, but it is prime time already. The sun's about on the horizon on the mountains, and the bite's gonna get hot soon. So I'm gonna set you down and get set up, and then we'll go fishing. So I often get asked what I perch fish with, and I thought it'd be fun to come out and target perch. I'm kind of in that real evening peak bite window, and I'm gonna try and get some good footage of the live scope too, so you guys can kind of watch how I'm playing with them. Now these are aggressive perch, and really I'm geared up for walleye. All these rods are bigger than what I normally bring. I've got one little one, but they're so aggressive that I haven't even put a plastic on that other rod. And what I'm using right now, they're really liking a vertical presentation and they're chasing up. So what I've got on is a scissor kick, and they're eating it with no bait. Now, to get them to eat it with no bait, I've got to bounce it pretty aggressively and keep it moving, so that they can see it, and so that they can't really make out what it is. They're just reacting out of aggression right now. And they're all stacked up on the bottom now. They stopped chasing, but there's one of them thinking about it. So stuck a couple. There's a couple big ones that came to see. If I had a minnow head on there, I'm pretty sure that it would have eaten it. I didn't bring the right rods. Normally I use lights and medium lights and then ultra lights. I try and match them to the presentation, not necessarily the size of the perch I'm getting. It's just, you don't want to rip a rip and wrap on an ultralight. It just doesn't really work good. So it's more matching the presentation. I mean, you can do all of it on a fiberglass light. I find the dipstick works pretty good. It'll fish a spoon, it'll fish a rip and wrap, it'll fish a micro jig like a tungsten, it'll fish just about anything you need it to. It'll fish it all well. So here's a cool jig. I'm in 20 feet of water, and here's a cool little jig, because this is a little heavier while still keeping a small profile. And it'll just get down to the fish fast. And fish nice and deep. So that's more or less what I'm looking for. There you go. So I'm leaving this one with a live minnow real high. I want big confident fish to come see that and eat it. I don't want little dinks eating minnows. Let's get that little jig down here. Back off the drag a bit so I'm not sending these fish to the sky. And then I'm going to drop and wiggle this guy down here. And he's going to get crushed. Oh, that was a good hit. I was watching the wrong rod. It's starting to heat up here. Okay. Oops. There you go. There we go. So what's this? This is the dipstick. So these are just, I mean, I'm in deeper water than I normally fish for perch. Oh, sorry. And these guys aren't huge, but they are hungry. And there's lots, and there's bigger ones down there. I'm marking them. So the cool thing about this little jig is it gets back down real fast. And then I'll be able to hook some fish here. Come on. There's not a lot of things better than being able to just fish them on a jig in a plastic and they eat it, because you can just drop it right back down there on them. Real fast. But they're a little reluctant, see? They're eating what's new, but they want some meat. So there we go, that's a better one. In cases like, they're getting a little bigger. That one missed it. And there's another one. I think this school's going to be pretty similar. But in cases like this, when they're reluctant to eat, and they're looking at it and they're bumping it and they're not really, oftentimes you just need one salty, just cut up into tiny little bits, and they'll eat that. They just need a piece of meat. You just need the slightest scent. You've already got the presentation and the color and the size. All they want is to be able to smell a little piece of meat on there. Come on. This guy wants it, but so the other things that I use a lot that are oh, I thought I had him that time. That was weight. The other things that are staples that I use a lot are tungsten jigs, your regular teardrops, 3 and 5 mil, and I use micro dinner bells quite often, and then I'll also use like the smallest sizes of rip and wrap in the Northland and whatever the other equivalents are. I like those a lot. I find that a jigging wrap doesn't perch don't tend to chase things around in circles. They're not looking to run after it. They want to follow it up and down and look at it and watch it quiver a while. So I find stuff like a jigging wrap and stuff isn't always as good. However, that being said, a lot of my biggest perch tend to come on a bait like a jigging wrap, or I really like the hyperglide, the smallest size of hyperglide. It really tends to call in those big fish and get just hammered. So it's good to have one in there. It attracts them in, and then just make sure that you got something small. And you know, your basic baits or your pin minnows, wax worms, grubs on a plain hook like a number 12 treble or a number 10 octopus. Little split shot, just sink it down, and then doesn't get much more natural than that. Those I tend to leave a little higher, a foot or two, maybe 2, 3, 4 feet depending on their aggression, and I leave those higher up so the fish have to come up and eat them, and then I jig lower down below them to try and attract fish and keep them interested. And those minnows hanging above will bring scent and hold a crowd of fish and whatever, but they're all going to sit there and look up and not necessarily come up and eat it. So that'll give you a chance of bringing a fish up and catching it and getting a bait back down and keeping the school engaged, because the really important thing when perch fishing is you got to keep the school engaged and you got to keep it there. So if you're perch fishing with buddies, stack up on the same spot. If you're on them, get piled up, keep all your holes 2 feet apart, and then just lay a beating on them and make sure that you always have other lures down there ready for them to eat, so that they stay engaged and they stay in the area, because that's the big one that tends to make the world of difference. Like if you've got friends and they like fishing on their own and they're sitting 50, 100 feet apart, you're not doing yourselves any favors. I mean, if there's more questions, I can answer more questions. And right now, I'm just going to try and catch a couple more and see how tonight goes. I think pretty soon it's getting a little darker, and they're getting a little, I wouldn't say they're sheepish, they're pretty aggressive. But I've got a lot of small minnows here I can burn through. So I think I'm going to put some minnows on this jig and try and do some work here and just catch some fish for you guys. Because yeah, the plastics they can be really good, and sometimes they're just not. And throughout the day it might change. I like having one as a backup. If they're hot and heavy and you're on a big school, throw some plastics on and give her. And like I said, especially if you've got live minnows higher up for them to come up and eat. But if you're fishing just a couple of individual fish, or you've just got a couple of big marks on, then you might want to give some meat a try. It works pretty good, but there are days where I've had a hard time getting them to eat a minnow, and it was a piece of minnow on a tungsten jig that was getting eaten, especially if they're lethargic and just lazy and don't want a big meal or don't want to chase it or feel like it might get away from them. Just hanging a little teardrop and just wiggling it will get you those bites. You gotta really play their mood. Perch are like cats. They'll sit there and look at something for 20 minutes before pouncing on it. But if they've got friends in the area, they're going to want to get it before their friends do. Alright. So the perch absolutely scattered. Which can only mean one thing. There's walleyes roaming. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on, buddy. Talk about a nice walleye. Ouch. Okay, that's for sure a keeper. check out. Oh boy, let's check out this fish. Capture. Buddy, chill. Oh, come on. Oh, you're bleeding a bit. This one's bleeding, he's going right back in. He's too small too. Or probably too small. I'm sending him right back. There you go, buddy. Come on. There he goes. So, they're eating big today. And they're eating high.